Good afternoon, more Medic 1. Today I have a ms260 STIHL chainsaw on the bench, and the engine's burned up in it, and basically we're going to go through the rebuild process of this saw. We're going to do a top end on it, and I'm going to go over what to look for before you rebuild a 2-cycle engine. A few things you want to go and make sure your carburetor's good, and make sure you don't have any air leaks through the crank seals and things like that. But anyway, let's get this thing tore down and we'll see how it turns out. First thing I'm going to do is remove the muffler. It's 2 screws on the bottom, and once you get this cover off, you'll see there's 2 more screws up under here that hold it to the engine block or the cylinder. Just go ahead and remove that. Go ahead and remove your all your covers, your air filter cover, and then your top cylinder cover. And now remove your starter housing. Hope everyone had a good New Year's and a good Christmas. I'm going to do this in about 3 parts. 2 if we're lucky. Maybe we can get all the parts in and rebuilt and running. Go ahead and remove your flywheel. It's held on by just a 13mm nut. Go ahead and remove your ignition module, which I've already done. I've kind of staged this just a little bit if you hadn't noticed already. But your module screws are right here. Just go ahead and take your module out and undo it from the cylinder. Go ahead and remove your air filter and carburetor. What you want to look for before you rebuild one of these, you want to find out, why did this engine fail? That's a good question, and a lot of people will just throw a new cylinder and piston on these saws, and they're not fixing the actual problem. A lot of times you have an air leak at a seal here or on the other side where the clutch is also a seal, and if that leaks air, it's going to throw your air fuel mixture, your carburetor off. It's not going to idle very well, and it's probably going to overheat because it's sucking up too much air and stuff. But anyway, the only other place that it could leak air is at the cylinder base here, and also the crankcase halves here. And I'm going to order the cylinder and piston kit. It comes with all the gaskets and stuff. So let's go ahead and remove the cylinder. Well, once you remove the carburetor, you can just push the rubber intake boot through the hole, and then the cylinder will come straight up. There's 4 screws that holds it on. There's one here, on 2 on the other side. Just take it and loosen those screws. Should be able to lift the cylinder up and out. Get the cylinder up off of there, and you should be able to look at the piston now. There's a C-clip on both sides, and just push the wrist pin through. There's the caged needle roller bearing, and right here, so the needles won't fall out because they're caged. But just push the pin out. I like to use a socket and a hammer sometimes, but don't force it if it won't go. You may have to heat it a little bit, but just remove the piston from the connecting rod. As you can tell, that piston is toast, and as you can see, the other side looks okay. The oil grooves are washed out of it, but it's still feels lubricated. It's got oil on it. This is the exhaust side of the piston, and the actual, some of the ridge of the piston, the material has been eaten away. One of two things can cause this: detonation from too much air to fuel ratio, the carburetor misadjusted, clogged up fuel filter, like I said, leaking seals and stuff like that. But what you want to do is, anytime I do a top end job, it either gets a new carburetor or I rebuild the carburetor depending on the cost of the carburetor. Sometimes you can rebuild one and make it work okay, but the cost of some of these carburetors nowadays, you can just replace the carburetor cheaper. You want to inspect your crank pin bearing here. It's okay to have a little slot back and forth, but actual up and down axial play, you don't want any. So this is good. The piston, the crankshaft and the connecting rod look okay. It's light cocoa brown down in here, which is normal on most saws. Get it all cleaned up real good, and get your gas tank flushed out and all that good stuff. And basically it's time to go back together with it. Once I get parts in, we'll see how it turns out, and we'll get this thing running. Until then, this is part one. Y'all have a good day. More Medic 1.